Content warning asterisk. This story explores themes of existential dread, societal collapse, and psychological distress that some listeners may find intense. Listener discretion is advised. It was 7:14 a.m. My alarm had been screaming for 20 minutes, but I couldn't bring myself to open my eyes. Not because I was tired, but because the darkness in my room felt absolute, unnatural. I finally swatted at my phone, silencing the insistent digital chirping, and forced my eyelids apart. Nothing. Just an inky blackness that pressed against my vision, a thick, palpable void where the soft glow of pre-dawn light should have been filtering through my blinds. I lived on the 10th floor of an apartment building in downtown Chicago. My east-facing window usually caught the first blush of sunrise, painting the ceiling in hues of orange and pink even before the alarm. But today there was nothing. Not a hint of gray, not a whisper of light, just the kind of darkness that belongs to the deepest hours of the night, or perhaps to a cave. My first thought was a power outage. It happens, right? A storm rolls through, a transformer blows, and you wake up to an unexpected blackout. But even in a blackout, there's usually some ambient light, a distant street lamp, the faint glow from a neighbor's window or a passing car. Today there was none of that. Felt deeper. I fumbled for my phone again, the screen a blinding rectangle in the oppressive gloom. The time stared back at me. 7:17 a.m. No alerts, no emergency broadcasts. Just the usual lock screen. I slid out of bed, my feet meeting the cold hardwood floor, and moved towards the window, my hand outstretched, feeling for the blind's cord. My heart was starting to thump a little harder now, a peculiar mix of confusion and a nascent, unsettling fear. With a gentle tug, the blinds rattled upwards. I pressed my face against the cool glass, expecting to see city lights, the faint outline of skyscrapers, maybe even some heavy, dark storm clouds. But there was nothing. It was as if the city itself had vanished, swallowed by an unending night. The sky was an unbroken canvas of black, devoid of stars, devoid of the moon, devoid of anything. It was a perfect, pristine darkness that felt utterly wrong. My breath hitched. This wasn't a power outage. This wasn't a storm. This was something else entirely. I pulled my phone out again, its flashlight beam a pathetic spear against the vastness outside. I pointed it downwards towards the street below. Usually, at this hour, even on a weekday, there'd be the early rush of delivery trucks, the occasional taxi, the first few commuters heading to their jobs. But the street was empty. No car lights, no glowing shop signs, no flickering street lamps. Just the abyss. A chill far colder than the morning air snaked down my spine. I tried to rationalize it. A solar eclipse? No, they don't last this long. And they're always announced months in advance. A massive, unprecedented fog? But fog usually has a certain density, a visible presence. This was just emptiness. An absence of light, an absence of the world I knew. I stumbled backwards, my mind racing, trying to grasp at any logical explanation. My hands were shaking as I tried to turn on the lights in my apartment. Nothing. The overhead lights, the bedside lamp, the kitchen pendants, all dead. This confirmed the power outage theory, but it didn't explain the sky. It didn't explain the profound, unnatural darkness outside. "Michael," I whispered, my voice cracked, barely audible in the sudden, overwhelming silence. The city, usually a symphony of distant sirens, traffic hum, and the low thrum of life, was eerily quiet. It was the kind of silence that screams louder than any noise. I needed information. I grabbed my laptop, frantically trying to boot it up. Dead. Of course. The power. My phone was barely clinging to 20% battery. I cursed myself for not charging it overnight. I tried calling my sister Emily. No signal. Just the dreaded flat tone of a failed connection. I tried my best friend David. Same result. It wasn't just the power. It seemed like all communication networks were down. Panic, cold and sharp, began to truly set in. This wasn't just my apartment or my building or even my city. If the power was out, if the networks were down, and if the sun hadn't risen, then this was something global. Something catastrophic. I walked to the kitchen, my movements jerky and uncertain in the pitch black. My eyes, though adjusting, still struggled to make out shapes. I bumped into the counter, stubbing my toe, but barely registered the pain. My mind was consumed by a single terrifying thought. What if the sun was gone? Permanently? I found a battery-powered radio in the back of a drawer, a relic from a hurricane kit I'd assembled years ago. My fingers trembled as I twisted the dial, desperately seeking a signal. Static. Just endless hissing static. I turned it slowly, methodically, hoping for a flicker of a voice, a snatch of music, anything. But there was nothing but the white noise, a mocking soundtrack to the end of the world. The air in my apartment felt colder now, a damp, penetrating chill that seeped into my bones. The windows, usually a source of light and a connection to the bustling world, now felt like gaping black holes, inviting in only dread. I pulled a blanket from my bed and wrapped it tightly around myself, not just for warmth but for comfort, a flimsy shield against the encroaching terror. I found myself pacing, a restless tiger in a cage, the silence of my apartment amplifying every creak of the floorboards, every ragged breath I took. How long had it been like this? Had everyone else woken up to the same horrifying reality? Were they as lost, as terrified as I was? I thought about the sheer impossibility of it. The sun, the source of all life, all warmth, all light, gone, just gone. It defied every law of nature, every scientific principle. It was a cosmic joke, a cruel trick played on humanity. And then a sound, faint, distant, but undeniably there. A wail. Not a siren, not yet. This was a human sound. A scream. It was quickly followed by another, and then another, building in intensity, echoing through the unnatural silence of the city. They were screams of terror, of despair, of utter disbelief. The sound began to multiply, spreading like a contagion, morphing into a cacophony of fear that tore through the pre-dawn silence. It was the sound of millions of people, waking up to a world that had forgotten how to turn. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure adrenaline. The screams were real. The panic was real. And the sun hadn't risen. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a nightmare. It was happening. And I had no idea what to do, where to go, or how to survive in a world that had plunged into eternal night. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the suffocating silence of the perpetual night. The initial shock began to morph into a cold, paralyzing terror. My hands, still fumbling for a light switch that now felt utterly useless, were trembling uncontrollably. It wasn't just my house that was dark. The entire world had been swallowed. I stumbled through my living room, my eyes straining uselessly in the absolute blackness. The only light came from the faint glow of my phone screen, which I'd somehow managed to grab. Its meager light cast long, dancing shadows of ordinary furniture, transforming familiar objects into monstrous shapes. Outside, the cacophony of screams had intensified, punctuated by the blare of car horns, then the wail of distant sirens, not the comforting, reassuring kind, but raw, desperate cries for help. My first thought was for my family. My sister Emily lived across town. My parents were a few states away. I frantically dialed Emily's number, my thumb slipping on the cold glass of the screen. It rang once, twice, then a busy signal. I tried again and again, my breath catching in my throat. Nothing. The lines must be jammed or worse. Panic was a physical sensation now, a tightening in my chest, a burning in my lungs. I needed information. I needed to know why. I fumbled for the remote, blindly pressing buttons until the television screen flickered to life, its blue-white glow a jarring contrast to the oppressive darkness. The news channels were a maelstrom of confusion. Every station, from local affiliates to national networks, displayed the same frantic, bewildered anchors, their faces pale and strained in the emergency studio lighting. "We have no explanation," one anchor, a woman named Sarah, her voice trembling, announced. "Authorities are urging citizens to remain calm and stay indoors. Power grids across the globe are failing, communications are sporadic, and we are receiving unconfirmed reports of widespread civil unrest." Her words were a chilling echo of my own experience. No explanation. That was the most terrifying part. Not a power outage, not an eclipse, not even a catastrophic solar flare that might have a scientific basis. This was something else, something entirely unprecedented. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my neighbor, Chris. "Are you seeing this? What the hell is happening?" His message felt like a lifeline, a tiny thread of shared reality in a world gone mad. I typed back, "I don't know. Can't reach Emily. Are you okay?" His reply came almost instantly. "Just trying to keep my kids calm. They're terrified. Power's out everywhere. Heard a huge crash down the street. Stay inside, man." Crash. That wasn't good. The fear solidified into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Staying inside felt like the only option, but it also felt like being a trapped animal, waiting for the unknown to find me. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. I realized I was still in my pajamas. The mundane act of getting dressed felt monumental, a desperate attempt to cling to normalcy. I found a flashlight. Thank God for the emergency kit I'd bought years ago and promptly forgotten about. And its beam cut a shaky path through the darkness. The batteries were old and the light was weak, but it was something. As I moved, the floorboards creaked underfoot, each sound magnified in the unnatural quiet that occasionally settled between the distant sirens and shouts. I opened the fridge. The light inside flickered on, a small, sad beacon. The food was there for now. But how long would the power hold? How long until everything spoiled? My mind raced, trying to process the implications. No sun meant no solar power, no photosynthesis, eventually no food for plants, no food for animals, no food for us. This wasn't just a blackout. This was an extinction event unfolding in slow motion. I needed to conserve my phone battery. I turned off the TV, plunging the living room back into absolute darkness, save for my weak flashlight beam. I tried calling Emily again. Still busy. I left her a voicemail, my voice scratchy and strained. Emily, it's me. Call me back as soon as you get this. Please be safe. I love you. The words felt inadequate, hollow in the face of whatever cosmic catastrophe had befallen us. The silence that followed was oppressive. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and shallow. The darkness pressed in from all sides, a tangible weight. I felt like I was at the bottom of the ocean, the weight of the world above me. My gaze drifted to the window. Black. Utterly, completely black. No stars, no moon, no distant city lights. Just an impenetrable void. It was as if the universe itself had blinked out, leaving us adrift in a forgotten pocket of existence. A primal instinct began to stir within me, a need to prepare, to gather, to survive. This wasn't a temporary inconvenience. This was permanent. The sun wasn't going to rise tomorrow, or the day after, or ever again. I started moving through my apartment with purpose, guided by the dim beam of my flashlight. Water, food, warmth. These were the immediate priorities. I filled every empty container I could find with tap water, knowing that the water supply might eventually fail without power. I rummaged through my pantry, pulling out canned goods, dry pasta, anything non-perishable. I gathered blankets, extra clothes, anything that could provide warmth. The temperature was already dropping, a subtle chill seeping into the apartment, a harbinger of the bitter cold to come. My mind, once paralyzed by fear, was now racing, trying to anticipate future problems. What about heat? My apartment had electric heating. Without power, it would be useless. I didn't have a fireplace, or even a gas stove that I could theoretically use for warmth. I was utterly unprepared for a world without light and heat. As I worked, a new sound cut through the air outside. Not screams, but a low guttural growl, followed by a sharp, yelping cry. It was animalistic, terrifyingly close. My blood ran cold. What kind of animal? A stray dog? Or something worse? In the absence of light, the familiar world was transforming into something alien and hostile. I pressed myself against the wall, straining my ears. The sound subsided, replaced by a new kind of silence. A watchful, predatory silence. I realized with a jolt that the darkness wasn't just a lack of light. It was a cloak, a veil behind which anything could hide. Anything could emerge. My flashlight beam, now even weaker, flickered. I cursed under my breath. I had spare batteries, but how many? And for how long? The finite nature of my resources became terrifyingly clear. Every flick of a switch, every drop of water, every bite of food was a dwindling asset. I thought about Chris, my neighbor, with his kids. What would he do? What would any of us do? Civilization as we knew it was crumbling around us, not with a bang, but with the slow, agonizing fade of all light. I walked to my front door, my hand hovering over the lock. The urge to peek outside to see what was truly happening was almost unbearable. But Chris's warning and the animalistic sounds held me back. Curiosity felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Survival was paramount. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a government alert. A single chilling message. Global solar event. Remain indoors. Conserve resources. Further instructions to follow. Global. Solar. Event. The words hung in the darkness, devoid of true meaning, yet filled with horrifying implications. It wasn't just a local problem. It wasn't just my city or my country. It was the entire planet. And the further instructions felt like a cruel joke. What instructions could possibly guide us through this? I sank to the floor, my back against the cold wall, the weak beam of my flashlight pointing aimlessly at the ceiling. The reality of it all crashed over me with renewed force. The world had ended, not with fire or ice, but with an absence. A void. And in that void I was utterly alone, adrift in an eternal night, with nothing but my dwindling supplies and a growing, suffocating fear of what the darkness might bring. The sounds outside had started again, closer now. Not just screams but something else. A low rhythmic chanting, mixed with the distant rumble of what sounded like heavy machinery. The world wasn't silent. It was alive with a new terrifying symphony of chaos. The world wasn't silent. It was alive with a new terrifying symphony of chaos. Michael froze, every muscle in his body rigid, his breath catching in his throat. The chanting. It wasn't the panicked, desperate cries he'd heard earlier. This was something else entirely. A deep guttural sound repeated with unnerving precision. A rhythm that felt ancient and wrong. It burrowed into his ears, a frequency that seemed to vibrate through his very bones, making his teeth ache. And beneath it, the relentless growl of heavy machinery, not just a distant thrum, but a grinding, tearing sound, like immense jaws devouring the very earth. His mind raced, desperately trying to categorize it to make sense of the senseless. Was it a cult? Some twisted ritual unfolding in the endless night? Or had the military finally arrived, bringing with them some experimental equipment to combat whatever had stolen the sun? Neither explanation felt right. The sounds were too alien, too primal to be mere human fanaticism, yet too deliberate to be a natural disaster. He stood there for a long moment, paralyzed by a dread colder than the unnatural gloom outside. The living room, which had offered a semblance of safety just hours ago, now felt like a fragile shell. The windows, once barriers against the unknown, now seemed thin and porous, barely holding back the encroaching horror. He had to know. He had to see. Moving with a caution that bordered on stealth, Michael crept towards the front window again, avoiding the spot where he'd seen the earlier fleeting terror. He peered through a sliver in the curtains, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. The street was still shrouded in that oppressive, starless twilight, a perpetual pre-dawn that never broke. But now it wasn't empty. Shadows. Too many shadows. They moved in the gloom, indistinct figures, but their number was unsettling. They weren't running in panic, nor were they searching. They moved with a slow, deliberate purpose, converging towards a central point he couldn't quite discern from his angle. And the chanting, he realized with a sickening jolt, was coming from them, or through them. It was a unified sound, strangely mechanical in its repetition, yet undeniably vocal. He pulled back, a cold sweat plastering his shirt to his back. This wasn't a desperate populace. This was organized. But by whom? Or what? The machinery's rumble intensified, a deep, resonant throb that made the very foundations of his house tremble. He could feel it in the floorboards beneath his feet. It wasn't just a rumble anymore. It was a rhythmic impact, like something massive being driven into the ground, or something even larger being pulled out of it. He needed a better vantage point. He needed to be higher, to see over the hedges, past the neighbor's house, to get a clearer picture of what was happening at the epicenter of this horrifying symphony. The upstairs. Climbing the stairs felt like ascending a gallows. Every creak of the old would seem to echo through the silent house, a betraying sound in the face of the encroaching horror. He moved slowly, deliberately, each step a conscious effort against the urge to bolt. He reached the master bedroom, the one facing the main road, and approached the window with excruciating care. He pulled back the thick blackout curtain just an inch, creating a narrow slit of vision. What he saw made his blood run cold. The streetlights, still stubbornly dark, left everything cloaked in the same impenetrable gloom. But down the road, perhaps a block or two away, a different kind of light pulsed intermittently. Not the harsh yellow of street lamps, nor the familiar blue-white of police sirens. This was a deep, unnatural violet, almost indigo, that flared and dimmed with a slow, hypnotic rhythm, casting grotesque, elongated shadows across the landscape. And there, in the direction of the pulsing light, was the source of the heavy machinery. He couldn't make out specifics, but he saw the silhouettes of massive structures, rising against the perpetual night sky. They weren't buildings. They weren't cranes or construction equipment he recognized. They were vast, angular, and seemed to be moving, their colossal forms shifting, churning, and digging. The ground around them was being torn apart, earth flying upwards in dark plumes that briefly blotted out the violet light. Whatever they were tearing a colossal wound into the earth. And the chanting, it was louder here, more defined. It wasn't human. Not entirely. It was a chorus of deep, resonant tones, like 1,000 voices singing in perfect, terrifying unison, yet with an underlying hum that sounded almost metallic, synthesized. It pulsed with the violet light, seeming to draw power from it, or perhaps to control it. It felt like a force, a physical presence pressing against the house, against Michael's very consciousness. He saw the figures now, more clearly in the fleeting violet glow. They were numerous, yes, but they weren't people he recognized from the neighborhood. Their movements were too uniform, too deliberate. They walked in precise lines, their heads bowed, their arms hanging loosely. And their faces, he couldn't make out their features in the darkness, but the way they held themselves, the way they moved, sent a shiver down his spine. There was no individuality, no panic, no fear. Only purpose. He scanned the street for any sign of his neighbors. The Millers next door, the Johnsons across the street. Their houses were dark, silent, like tombs. Were they hiding? Or had they joined the procession? The thought was a chilling one, making his stomach clench. He remembered his old landline, a relic from a time before everyone carried a smartphone. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't tied to the same down network as his cell. He rushed back downstairs, fumbling his way through the darkened kitchen to the wall-mounted phone. His fingers trembled as he picked up the receiver. No dial tone, just a flat, dead silence. Not even static. Panic, cold and sharp, began to truly set in. Every avenue of communication was severed. Every connection to the outside world, to normalcy, was gone. He was utterly, completely alone in this horrifying new reality. The chanting outside swelled, rising in intensity. The violet light flashed brighter, faster, illuminating more of the monstrous machinery. He could see parts of it now, colossal drills, their tips glowing with an internal heat, boring down into the earth with terrifying speed. Great grappling arms, like the limbs of some metallic leviathan, tore at the ground, pulling away chunks of rock and soil, discarding them in growing mounds. It was an excavation on an unimaginable scale, driven by an unknown, terrifying agenda. And then he saw it. A detail. A single horrifying detail that solidified his dread. As one of the grappling arms swung back, briefly silhouetted against the violet light, he saw something hanging from its metallic fingers. Not dirt, not rock, but something organic. A tree, or what was left of one. Its roots were still clinging to a clump of earth, but its trunk was snapped clean, its branches mangled. It was being tossed aside like a discarded toy. These machines weren't just digging, they were clearing. They were transforming the landscape. For what? The tremor hit then, sudden and violent. Not a gentle shake, but an explosive jolt that sent him stumbling backwards, crashing into the kitchen counter. The house groaned, timbers protesting, and a fine dust sifted down from the ceiling. Outside, the chanting reached a fever pitch, a deafening crescendo that vibrated through the very foundations of the earth. The violet light pulsed wildly, illuminating the rapidly expanding chasm in the ground, a gaping maw beneath the monstrous machines. This wasn't an earthquake. This was localized, powerful, and directly linked to whatever was happening down the street. The machinery wasn't just digging. It was activating something, or revealing something. And the chanting, it felt like an incantation, a summoning. Michael scrambled to his feet, his mind reeling. The house, his sanctuary, felt like it was about to be swallowed whole. He couldn't stay here. He couldn't just stand by and listen to the world outside being torn apart, reshaped by these unseen, unholy forces. He had to act. He had to move. But where? And to what? The perpetual night offered no answers, only deeper, more terrifying questions. Michael felt a primal urge, something deeper than fear, stirring within him. It was the instinct to survive, to protect, to understand. He couldn't protect anyone by cowering in his living room, listening to the world unravel. He needed information. He needed to see. His hand trembled as he reached for the heavy oak door. His breath hitched. What lay beyond? The same familiar street, or a landscape twisted into something alien? He took a deep, shuddering breath, the stale air of his house suddenly feeling too thin, too suffocating. He grabbed the sturdy aluminum baseball bat he kept by the door for emergencies, its weight a cold comfort in his grip. His tactical flashlight, usually reserved for camping trips, felt like a lifeline. He clicked it on. A weak beam cut through the gloom, a tiny defiance against the all-encompassing dark. The deadbolt clicked with an unnerving finality. He twisted the doorknob. The cold hit him first, a vicious, biting wind that seemed to strip the warmth from his very bones. It wasn't just chilly. It was an Arctic blast, far colder than anything he'd ever experienced in late autumn in Ohio. He pulled his thickest winter coat tighter, the fabric offering little protection against the sudden, profound drop in temperature. He stepped onto his porch, the beam of his flashlight sweeping across the familiar brickwork, then out into the street. The world was a canvas of deep, impenetrable black. No streetlights, no porch lights, no distant glow from the city skyline. Just an absolute, suffocating void. The air was thick, heavy and silent. Not the comforting silence of a sleeping neighborhood, but the terrifying silence of a tomb. It was a silence that swallowed sound, that seemed to press in on him, stealing his breath. He strained his ears. He heard nothing. No chirping crickets, no distant hum of traffic, no barking dogs. Nothing. It was as if the world had simply stopped. The only sound was the frantic pounding of his own heart, a drumbeat against the overwhelming stillness. He took a tentative step down his porch steps, the crunch of dead leaves under his boots sounding unnaturally loud in the profound quiet. He swept his flashlight beam across his front yard. The grass was already stiff with frost, glinting like scattered diamonds in the meager light. He looked up, trying to pierce the blackness that should have been the sky. There were no stars, no moon, just an unyielding, featureless blackness that seemed to absorb all light, all hope. A shiver, not entirely from the cold, ran down his spine. This wasn't just a prolonged night. This was a void. He walked slowly down his driveway, his gaze fixed on his neighbor's house, the Taylors. Their porch light was always on, a beacon in the night. Now it was just another dark silhouette against the deeper dark. He tried his phone again, pulling it from his pocket. The screen glowed, showing a full battery, but the signal bars were completely empty. No service, not even an SOS option. The digital clock on the screen still read the correct time, a jarring reminder of a world that no longer existed. He stuffed it back into his pocket, the useless device a heavy weight. He reached the sidewalk, his eyes darting left and right. The street was empty. Every house was dark, every window a black rectangle. It was as if everyone had vanished, or were simply cowering inside, just as he had been. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was profoundly wrong, beyond just a power outage. As he walked, his flashlight beam danced over the pavement. He noticed something strange. Patches of ice, not just frost, were forming on the asphalt, even though there had been no precipitation, and it was forming fast. He watched in morbid fascination as a thin film of ice spread across a puddle right before his eyes, almost like a living thing, reaching out tendrils of cold. The temperature was plummeting at an alarming rate. He stopped at the Taylor's front door, his knuckles white around the baseball bat. He hesitated, then knocked. His knock echoed, a hollow, lonely sound that seemed to mock his effort. He knocked again, louder this time. Nothing. No light came on, no sounds from within. He pressed his ear to the door, listening intently. Only the chilling wind whistled past him. He moved to their front window, peering through the glass. Utter darkness. He tried another house, the Millers across the street. Same result. Dark. Silent. Empty. A sickening dread began to coil in his stomach. This wasn't just his street. This felt bigger. Much, much bigger. He continued his patrol, moving slowly down the desolate street. The wind picked up, carrying with it a faint metallic scent he couldn't quite place, something coppery and acrid. It made his stomach churn. Then he saw it. A car, not one he recognized, parked haphazardly in the middle of the street, its driver's side door agape. It wasn't running. Its headlights were dark. He approached cautiously, his heart hammering against his ribs. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the interior of the car. The keys were still in the ignition. A half-eaten bag of chips lay on the passenger seat, along with a discarded soda can. It looked as if the driver had just stepped out, abruptly, and never returned. He knelt, peering closer. On the dashboard, a crumpled piece of paper caught his eye. He reached in, his fingers brushing against the cold, smooth plastic of the dash. He unfolded the paper carefully. It was a receipt from a gas station dated yesterday, but on the back, scrawled in hurried, almost illegible handwriting, was a message. It's not just the sun. It's everything. They're here. Don't go outside. Don't trust the silence. The whispers, they're real. Michael's blood ran cold. They're here. Who? What whispers? The note was terrifyingly vague, yet it confirmed his worst fears. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. This was something else entirely. An invasion? A cosmic shift? He looked around wildly, his flashlight beam cutting through the oppressive blackness, searching for anything at all, that might give context to the chilling words. He found nothing. Just the abandoned car, the silent houses, the biting cold, and the endless starless night. The silence, which had been merely unnerving moments ago, now felt malicious, pregnant with unseen threats. He clutched the note, the flimsy paper feeling like a burden, a cursed artifact. He stood up, his gaze sweeping the street again. The metallic acrid scent seemed stronger now, clinging to the air. And then he heard it. A sound, faint at first, carried on the wind. It wasn't a whisper, not exactly. It was more like a low, guttural murmur, a collective sigh, or perhaps a distant groan. It seemed to emanate from the direction of the town square, about a mile away. It was too deep, too resonant to be human. It sounded ancient, or alien. His mind raced. The note, the abandoned car, the impossible cold, the missing sun, the strange rapid ice formation, and now that sound. He had ventured out seeking answers, and he had found only more questions, each one more terrifying than the last. The world outside his door was not just dark. It was fundamentally broken, inhabited by unknown forces. The warning on the note echoed in his mind. Don't go outside. But he was outside, and he couldn't unsee what he'd seen, or unhear what he'd heard. He had to make a choice. Retreat to the dubious safety of his dark house, to wait, to wonder, to slowly freeze, or press on towards the source of that unholy sound, towards the town square, where perhaps, just perhaps, others might be gathering or answers might be found. The rational part of his brain screamed at him to go back, to barricade himself in. But the same primal urge that had driven him out now pulled him forward, a morbid curiosity intertwined with a desperate need for understanding. The note said, "Don't trust the silence." But now the silence was broken, and the sound that replaced it was far more terrifying. He gripped the baseball bat tighter, his knuckles white. The cold was seeping deeper into his bones, but a different kind of chill crept into his soul. He had to know. He had to understand. He began to walk, slowly, deliberately, towards the distant, guttural murmur, into the heart of the perpetual night. Every step was a battle against his own fear, a step deeper into the unknown, a step closer to whatever unspeakable truth awaited him under the endless, starless void. He moved forward, drawn by an unseen current, towards the distant, guttural murmur, into the heart of the perpetual night. Every step was a battle against his own fear, a step deeper into the unknown, a step closer to whatever unspeakable truth awaited him under the endless, starless void. The ground beneath his feet shifted from pavement to an overgrown, uneven path, suggesting he had veered off the main road. The trees here were denser, their skeletal branches clawing at the non-existent sky, forming a canopy that swallowed what little ambient light might have been present. His flashlight beam, a solitary defiance against the encroaching void, danced across gnarled roots and thorny bushes, illuminating fleeting glimpses of a world that felt alien, twisted. The guttural murmur grew, no longer a distant whisper, but a resonant thrum that vibrated through the very ground. It wasn't the sound of an animal, nor a natural phenomenon. It had a rhythmic quality to it, deep and unsettling, like the labored breathing of some colossal unseen entity. It pulsed, a low, constant bass note beneath the terrifying symphony of his own pounding heart. He could feel it now, a pressure behind his ears, a vibration in his chest that made his teeth ache. He stumbled, catching himself on a rough tree trunk, his hand scraping against the bark. A sharp pain lanced through his palm, but he barely registered it. His senses were overwhelmed, every fiber of his being screaming at him to turn back, to run. But the image of his daughter, Jessica, alone in their dark house, fueled his every reluctant step forward. He had to know. He had to understand. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange metallic scent, mingled with something else he couldn't quite place. A faint, sickly sweetness, like decaying flowers or perhaps something chemical. It was cloying, making each breath feel like an effort. He pulled his scarf higher over his nose and mouth, a futile attempt to filter the oppressive atmosphere. Minutes stretched into an eternity. He passed what looked like abandoned farming equipment, rusted and half-buried in the encroaching undergrowth, a ghost of a past world. The sheer desolation was chilling. How far had he walked? How far had he strayed from anything resembling civilization? Then he saw it. A faint, almost imperceptible glow in the distance. A sickly green luminescence that pulsed in sync with the guttural thrum. It wasn't natural. It was artificial and deeply disturbing. It pulled him forward like a moth to a deadly flame, overriding his instinct for self-preservation. As he got closer, the glow resolved into a series of scattered lights, emanating from what looked like a collection of makeshift structures. They weren't houses nor typical buildings. They appeared cobbled together from salvaged materials, corrugated metal, tarpaulins, planks of wood, all leaning precariously against each other, forming a chaotic, desperate settlement. This was a camp, but unlike any he had ever seen. The guttural murmur was deafening now, vibrating through his bones. It seemed to come from the very center of this strange encampment. He cautiously approached the edge, hiding behind a thick bush, his flashlight off. The green light, dim but pervasive, cast long, distorted shadows, making everything appear monstrous. He peered into the camp. There were no sounds of human activity. No voices, no movement, nothing but the overwhelming thrum and the occasional creak of the makeshift structures in the oppressive stillness. It was eerily silent, devoid of life. Then he saw movement. A figure. It was hunched over something, near the epicenter of the green glow. It moved slowly, deliberately, almost mechanically. His heart hammered against his ribs. Was it a survivor? Or something else? He took a deep, shuddering breath and slowly, carefully, moved closer, keeping to the shadows. The ground beneath his feet became littered with debris, broken tools, discarded packaging, empty cans, all covered in a fine layer of dark dust. This wasn't just a temporary camp. It looked like people had been living here for some time and then vanished. He reached the edge of the nearest structure, a flimsy lean-to fashioned from a tarp and some branches. He pressed himself against its rough surface, listening. Nothing. Only the thrum. He risked a quick peek inside. Empty. A tattered blanket, a few plastic bottles, a small overturned cooking pot. It was like they had left in a hurry, or simply disappeared. He continued his stealthy approach towards the center of the camp, where the green light was strongest, and the thrumming was a physical force. He rounded a corner, and his breath hitched in his throat. There, in the center of a small clearing, stood a massive, pulsating object. It was roughly spherical, perhaps 20 feet in diameter, composed of a dark, metallic-looking material that seemed to absorb the ambient darkness around it, save for the sickly green light that emanated from within its surface in swirling, hypnotic patterns. It thrummed a deep, resonant hum that was both terrifying and strangely compelling. It wasn't a machine he recognized. It wasn't natural. It was alien. And around it, scattered on the ground, were dozens of human figures. They weren't moving. They weren't alive. He felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He staggered back, his hand flying to his mouth to stifle a cry. The figures were slumped or lying prone, some partially covered by tarpaulins, others fully exposed. Their skin, even in the dim green light, looked unnaturally pale, almost translucent. Their eyes, where visible, were wide and vacant, staring up into the perpetual night. He forced himself to look closer, his mind screaming in protest. They looked drained, not physically injured, not starved, but as if something vital had been drawn from them. Their bodies were intact, their clothes undisturbed, but there was an emptiness to them, a profound stillness that spoke of an absence of life, not merely its cessation. He saw a woman, her face frozen in a silent scream, her hand outstretched as if reaching for something. He saw a man slumped against the pulsating sphere, his head tilted back, his mouth agape. And then he saw a child, no older than Jessica, lying peacefully, almost serenely, next to what looked like a handmade wooden toy. That was when he felt his knees buckle. He sank to the ground, trying to process the horrifying tableau before him. This wasn't just about the sun not rising. This was about extinction. This was about something unspeakable, harvesting life itself. His gaze flickered back to the pulsating sphere. The green light intensified, then dimmed, then intensified again, in rhythm with the thrum. It was like a colossal heart, beating in the darkness, but a heart that fed on the life around it. He scrambled backwards, away from the horrific scene, away from the sphere, away from the silent, vacant faces. He had to get out. He had to warn people. Jessica. He had to get back to Jessica. As he turned to flee, a small detail caught his eye. Something glinting on the ground, near the edge of the clearing, partially obscured by a discarded backpack. It was a single silver locket. He hesitated, his survival instinct warring with an inexplicable urge. The locket was open. He could see a tiny faded photograph inside. A young woman smiling, holding a baby. It looked familiar. Terribly familiar. Against his better judgment, he crawled forward, his eyes darting between the locket and the pulsating sphere, half expecting it to suddenly spring to life and consume him. He reached the locket, his fingers trembling as he picked it up. He brought it closer to his face, letting the faint green light illuminate the photograph. And then his world shattered. The young woman in the photograph was Emily. Emily Harrison. His neighbor. The woman who had been frantically searching for her missing child. Lily. Just yesterday morning, before the world went dark. And the baby in her arms. It was Lily. A choked sob escaped his lips. Emily. She had come here. She had followed some desperate lead, some vague hope into this nightmare. And now, he looked back at the silent figures around the sphere. He knew Emily had distinctive auburn hair. He scanned the bodies, a new cold dread gripping him. He found her, slumped against a jagged piece of metal, her auburn hair fanned out around her pale face, her eyes wide, staring at nothing. The same vacant, hollow expression as all the others. And there, clutched in her hand, was a small child-sized shoe. Lily's shoe. He felt a primal scream tear through his chest, but it was trapped, suffocated by the heavy metallic air. Lily, the child he had tried to help find. She was here too, or what was left of her. He pressed the locket tight in his hand, the metal digging into his palm. This wasn't just a natural disaster. This was a deliberate act. Something was actively doing this. And it was still here, pulsating, thrumming, a monstrous, silent harvester of life. A sudden, sharp cracking sound echoed through the eerie silence, not from the sphere, but from the makeshift structures behind him. He froze, his head snapping around. Had he been seen? Was someone else here? Or something else? The sound was followed by a low, guttural growl, much closer than the distant thrum of the sphere. It was organic, predatory, and filled with a chilling intelligence. It wasn't the sphere. It was something else entirely. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding, adrenaline surging through his veins. He spun around, trying to pinpoint the source of the growl in the dim, distorted light. His flashlight was still off, clutched uselessly in his other hand. "Who's there?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, barely audible above the thrumming. The growl came again, closer still, from behind the very structure he had just been hiding near. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness between two lean-tos, moving with an unnatural fluidity. It was large, humanoid in shape, but too tall, too gaunt, its movements jerky and unnatural. Its eyes, if they were eyes, reflected the green light of the sphere with a terrifying, malevolent gleam. He stared, paralyzed by a terror he had never known. This wasn't human. This wasn't an animal. This was something born of the perpetual night, something guarding the monstrous sphere and its horrific harvest. The creature took another step forward, its head cocked to one side, as if studying him, assessing him. A low, wet chuckle emanated from its throat, a sound that scraped against his sanity. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that he had just stumbled upon the very heart of the nightmare. And he was not alone. The thing before him was not of this world, or at least not of any world he had ever known. It stood, or rather slunk, in the cavernous space, its form a grotesque parody of life, gaunt and unnaturally elongated, its limbs bent at angles that defied anatomy, reminiscent of a praying mantis stretched to nightmare proportions. Its skin, where visible beneath what appeared to be dark, tattered remnants of cloth or perhaps its own shed membrane, was a sickly, pale gray, slick with something that gleamed in the faint beam of his flashlight. But it was its head, or what passed for one, that truly froze Michael's blood. It was disproportionately small for its towering frame, almost insectoid, with two enormous multifaceted eyes that glowed with a cold internal luminescence. They were not human eyes. They were the eyes of a predator, ancient and utterly devoid of empathy, reflecting his own terror back at him. The wet chuckle returned, a sound that seemed to bubble up from deep within its chest, revealing not teeth, but a series of overlapping chitinous plates that clicked and scraped against each other. Michael felt a primal scream clawing at his throat, but no sound escaped. His muscles locked, his breath caught in his lungs. Every fiber of his being screamed to run, to flee, but his body refused to obey. He was a rabbit caught in the gaze of a wolf, utterly paralyzed by the sheer, overwhelming wrongness of the entity before him. The creature took a step, then another. Its movements were fluid, silent, and disturbingly deliberate. It didn't rush. It seemed to savor his fear, to draw it in like a scent. Each step brought it closer, the glowing eyes unwavering, burning into his soul. The air grew colder, heavy with a metallic acrid scent he couldn't quite place, yet instinctively knew was alien and dangerous. His mind, usually so sharp, was a whirlwind of panic. What was this thing? Was it responsible for the endless night? Was it guarding something? Or was it simply a monstrous inhabitant of this forgotten subterranean world? The question swirled, but survival instinct, dormant for so long, finally roared to life. He had to move. He had to. With a desperate guttural cry that sounded more like a choked gasp, Michael twisted, his feet scrambling on the uneven floor. He didn't even know where he was running, only that he needed to get away from it. He plunged back into the maze of machinery, his flashlight beam bouncing wildly, illuminating fleeting glimpses of rusted pipes, sparking conduits, and shadows that seemed to twist and writhe. A chilling shriek, far louder and more piercing than the chuckle, echoed behind him. It wasn't the sound of an animal, but something else entirely. A sound designed to terrify, to break the spirit. He didn't dare look back. He just ran, his lungs burning, his legs aching, pushing himself harder than he ever had before. He slammed into a thick, grimy curtain of wires, barely catching himself before he tripped. The wires hummed with a low, dangerous energy, and he could feel a faint vibration through his fingertips. He pushed through them, his jacket snagging, and emerged into another corridor. This one narrower and lined with what looked like deactivated control panels, their screens dark and lifeless. The shriek came again, closer this time, followed by a series of heavy, scraping thuds on the metal floor. It was gaining on him. Michael risked a quick glance over his shoulder. The glowing eyes were visible in the distance, a pair of malevolent beacons in the overwhelming darkness, closing in with terrifying speed. The creature was no longer moving slowly. It was a blur of pale gray and elongated limbs, a nightmare made manifest. He spotted an opening to his left, a smaller access tunnel barely wide enough for him to squeeze through. It looked like a maintenance shaft, leading downwards into even deeper darkness. He didn't hesitate. He dove in headfirst, scraping his knees and elbows on the rough metal, the cold, damp air instantly enveloping him. The tunnel was a claustrophobic nightmare, a tight downward spiral that seemed to go on forever. His flashlight beam struggled to penetrate the inky blackness, revealing only more corroding metal and dripping condensation. He could hear the creature attempting to follow, its large frame struggling to fit into the narrow opening, a frustrated snarl rumbling through the tunnel, vibrating through the very metal around him. He slid down a steep incline, losing his footing and tumbling several feet, landing with a painful thud on a grate. He groaned, feeling a sharp pain shoot through his ribcage, but adrenaline surged through him, forcing him back to his feet. He was in a cylindrical chamber now, smaller than the last, with a central column that pulsated with a faint, sickly green light. Around the column, bolted to the floor, were several large glass cylinders, each filled with a murky viscous liquid. And within those cylinders, Michael stumbled backward, his breath catching in his throat. Within the cylinders, suspended in the liquid, were forms. Humanoid forms. They were pale, translucent, their features indistinct through the cloudy fluid, but undeniably human in shape. Some seemed to be intact, floating serenely, while others were disturbingly incomplete, missing limbs or with grotesque distortions. They were like macabre specimens preserved in some unholy laboratory. He frantically shone his flashlight around the chamber. There were dozens of them, maybe more, stretching into the gloom, each in its own cylinder. A low hum emanated from the central column, a sound that seemed to resonate with a deep, unsettling energy. This wasn't just a power station. This was something far more sinister. Panic threatened to overwhelm him again, but a new emotion, cold and sharp, cut through it: horror. Unadulterated, soul-crushing horror. This was what the facility was doing. This was what the endless night had wrought. This was the truth. A loud metallic screech from the tunnel above shattered the silence. The creature was forcing its way through. He had to move. He couldn't let it catch him here, in this chamber of horrors. He spotted another opening on the far side of the chamber, a wider arched doorway leading into another dark expanse. He sprinted towards it, his heart pounding against his ribs. The images of the suspended bodies burned into his mind. He burst through the doorway and skidded to a halt. This chamber was vast, echoing, and terrifyingly different. It was circular, its walls lined with what looked like colossal ancient gears, each one larger than a bus, all motionless and silent. In the very center of the chamber, dominating the space, was a structure that defied description. It was a colossal obsidian monolith, impossibly smooth and dark, absorbing all light. It rose from the floor, piercing the ceiling of the cavern, its sheer scale dwarfing everything else. Strange, intricate symbols etched into its surface glowed with the same sickly green light he'd seen in the previous chamber. A low, rhythmic thrum emanated from it, a pulse that seemed to shake the very ground beneath his feet, a sound that resonated with the deepest fear within him. This was no generator. This was no ordinary machine. This was something ancient, something cosmic, something that felt utterly alien and terrifyingly powerful. He stared at the monolith, mesmerized by its terrifying beauty, by the sheer, unimaginable power it exuded. He felt a profound sense of dread, a chilling certainty that this was the source, the epicenter of everything that had gone wrong. This was what had stolen the sun. Then a sound. Not the creature behind him, but a new sound, a faint, almost imperceptible clinking from within the monolith itself. It was subtle but distinct, like metal against metal, or perhaps something stirring from a long slumber. The green symbols on the monolith pulsed, growing brighter, then dimming, in sync with the rhythmic thrum. The air around it began to shimmer, distorting the light from his flashlight. He took a hesitant step closer, drawn by an irresistible, morbid curiosity, even as every instinct screamed at him to flee. The clinking grew louder, more insistent. And then, a section of the obsidian monolith, a seamless part of its surface, began to move. It didn't open like a door. It simply began to retract, to slide inward, revealing a gap, a deeper, even more profound darkness within the darkness. From that newly opened void, a soft, almost melodic whirring began, growing steadily in volume. And then a light, a pure, blinding white light, unlike anything he had seen since the sun vanished. It burst forth from the opening, momentarily disorienting him, forcing him to shield his eyes. As his vision slowly adjusted, he lowered his hand, his eyes widening in disbelief, then in a terror that surpassed anything he had felt before. Standing within the blinding white light, emerging from the heart of the monolith, was not another creature, not another machine. It was a person, a woman. She was tall, slender, dressed in a pristine white jumpsuit that seemed to glow with an inner luminescence. Her hair, a striking platinum blonde, fell in a perfect cascade around her shoulders. Her face was serene, almost angelic, utterly devoid of emotion. But it was her eyes, the same piercing, intelligent, cold blue eyes he'd seen in the photos of Dr. Evelyn Reed, that sent a shockwave through him. She held something in her hands, a small, intricate device humming softly, radiating the same pure white light. As she stepped fully out of the monolith, the opening ceiling silently behind her, her gaze swept across the vast chamber, then landed on him. A slow, knowing smile spread across her face. It was a smile that promised understanding, but delivered only a deeper, more profound terror. "Michael," she said, her voice soft, clear, and utterly devoid of warmth, echoing unnaturally in the vast chamber. "I've been expecting you." Behind him, from the tunnel he had just escaped, the scraping thuds of the creature grew louder, closer. He was trapped between a monstrous entity of the deep and a woman who held the secrets of the sun in her hands, a woman who seemed to know him, who had been expecting him. And in that moment Michael understood. The creatures, the endless night, The terrifying machinery, the preserved bodies, it was all connected. And he was not just an accidental discoverer. He was a part of her plan. Her smile, cold and knowing, was all the confirmation Michael needed. He stood frozen, the damp chill of the cavern seeping into his bones, but it was the icy dread in his gut that truly paralyzed him. He was not merely a casualty of circumstance, not a lost soul caught in a cosmic accident. He was a puzzle piece, slotted into a design far grander and more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. "You understand, don't you, Michael?" Dr. Evelyn Reed's voice was soft, almost gentle, yet it carried the weight of absolute conviction. "The pieces are falling into place for you now. The endless night, the guardians, the machinery that hums beneath the very crust of this world. And yes, the sleepers. All part of a single intricate tapestry." He found his voice a raw whisper. "The sun, you stopped the sun." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of horror. Evelyn's head tilted slightly, her eyes, once filled with an almost manic brilliance, now held a quiet, unsettling satisfaction. "Stopped? No, Michael. I merely paused it, or more accurately redirected its light. You see, the sun is a chaotic, untamed force. It dictates our rhythms, our growth, our decay. It fuels our destructive tendencies, our endless consumption, our relentless march towards a predictable, devastating end." She gestured around the vast chamber, sweeping her hand across the rows of suspended bodies, the pulsing conduits, the strange, organic-looking walls. "This is a sanctuary, a crucible, a chance to rewrite the script." Michael swallowed, his throat dry. "Rewrite what script? You've plunged the world into eternal darkness. People are dying, Evelyn. Billions are gone. A necessary recalibration," she replied, her voice devoid of emotion. "Think of it as a hard reset. Humanity, as it was heading for an inevitable collapse. Resource depletion, climate catastrophe, internecine conflict. We were a species devouring ourselves, blind to the precipice. I offered a different path, a way to preserve the essence, to refine, to rebuild, but this time with control, with purpose." He stared at the preserved bodies, a sickening thought taking root. The people, are they dead? They are in stasis, held at the moment of their greatest potential, their genetic information intact, their minds dormant but retrievable. They are the seeds of a new beginning, Michael, a library of life, waiting for the right conditions to sprout anew. "And the creatures?" Michael pressed, remembering the shadowy, chitinous beings that had stalked the surface, the ones that had led him here. Evelyn smiled, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "My protectors, my architects. They are biological constructs, perfectly adapted to this new environment. They maintain the systems, guard the perimeter, and ensure that no unintended variables interfere with the delicate balance of the great pause. They are extensions of my will, designed for efficiency and unwavering loyalty." "Unwavering loyalty?" Michael scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping him. "They dragged me here, Evelyn. They've been hunting people. Hunting us. Because you were a variable," she explained calmly, as if discussing a trivial scientific anomaly. "An unexpected anomaly in my calculations. The system is designed to shepherd those who survive the initial stages to designated collection points, or failing that, to bring them here for assessment. Your resilience, your resourcefulness, your ability to navigate the new landscape. It was all noted. Your journey was observed, Michael. Every step." A cold wave of dread washed over him. "Observed? Since when? Since the sun stopped rising? Since before?" He felt a sudden, profound violation, as if his entire existence had been a curated experiment. "Why me?" he demanded, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. "What do you want with me?" Evelyn stepped closer, her gaze intense, almost dissecting him. "You possess a remarkable genetic anomaly, Michael. A unique neural pathway that grants you an unparalleled capacity for adaptation and problem-solving under extreme duress. You see patterns where others see chaos. You find solutions where others find only despair. You are, in essence, a living key." Michael felt a chill deeper than the cavern air. "A key to what?" "To the next phase," she whispered, her voice laced with an almost religious fervor. "The Great Pause is merely the incubation period. The world needed to be purged of its self-destructive tendencies, its rampant individualism. Now we are ready to begin the reconstruction. And for that, I need a mind capable of bridging the old world and the new." a mind that can understand the complexities of both and guide the reawakened. A mind like yours, Michael. He recoiled, shaking his head. You're insane. You can't just reset humanity. You can't play God. Evelyn's eyes hardened. I am not playing God, Michael. I am being God. The old gods failed us. They allowed us to spiral into darkness. I am merely correcting their oversight. I am providing the structure, the guidance, the control that humanity so desperately needs to survive. And you, Michael, are integral to that survival. He looked around the vast, pulsating chamber, at the rows of silent bodies, at the incomprehensible machinery, at the woman who had commandeered the very fabric of reality. The sheer scale of her delusion, her ambition, was breathtakingly terrifying. He wasn't just an accidental survivor. He was a chosen tool. So what's my role in this new world? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady, to mask the growing panic. You will be my co-architect, Evelyn declared, her voice swelling with a chilling grandeur. My right hand. You will help me awaken the chosen, guide them through the re-education protocols, and ensure the new society flourishes under the parameters I have established. You will be instrumental in shaping a future free from conflict, free from want, free from the self-inflicted wounds that nearly extinguished us all. He could barely breathe. Guide the reawakened? Re-education protocols? It sounded like a nightmare, a sterile, controlled existence orchestrated by a madwoman. His mind raced, trying to find a flaw, a weakness, a way out of this horrifying prophecy. He looked at the vastness of the cavern, the sheer impossibility of her operation, and the cold, unyielding conviction in her eyes. There was no reasoning with her. There was no escape from her vision. And if I refuse? Michael challenged, his voice cracking slightly. Evelyn's smile vanished, replaced by a look of profound disappointment. Refusal is not an option, Michael. Not for you. You are uniquely suited for this task. Your genetic markers, your psychological profile, it all aligns. The universe, or perhaps something beyond it, has chosen you just as it chose me. To deny your purpose would be to deny destiny itself. She took another step closer, her hand reaching out, not to touch him, but to emphasize her words. Besides, where would you go? The world outside is a perpetual twilight, patrolled by my guardians. The old world is gone. There is only the future I am building, and you are irrevocably a part of it. His eyes darted around, searching for a sign, any sign of hope. But all he saw was the endless machinery, the silent sleepers, and the chilling certainty in Evelyn Reed's gaze. He was trapped, not just in a cavern beneath the earth, but in a future that had been meticulously designed, a future where he had a specific, terrifying role to play. The sun hadn't risen this morning, and it would never rise again, not in the way he remembered. And he, Michael, was now a prisoner of the woman who had stolen the dawn. The world spun, then solidified into an unsettling reality. Michael's senses returned, not to the familiar warmth of his bed, but to an insistent chill that permeated the air. The metallic tang of antiseptic filled his nostrils, sharp and clinical. His wrists were secured, not painfully but firmly, to what felt like a polished, padded examination table. He opened his eyes, expecting the crushing darkness he'd last seen. But instead, a soft, diffused light emanated from the ceiling, a pale, artificial glow that seemed to mock the memory of genuine sunlight. This wasn't a dungeon, he realized with a jolt of ice-cold dread, but something far more unsettling. A medical bay, or perhaps a laboratory, meticulously clean, unervingly quiet. Every surface gleamed, reflecting the sterile light. There were no windows, no sound from outside, just the faint hum of unseen machinery. He tried to move, testing the restraints. They held fast, designed not for brutality, but for absolute control. He was a specimen, an exhibit, not a prisoner to be tormented. A door, almost imperceptible in the seamless wall, slid open with a whisper of hydraulics. A figure stepped into the room. It was her, the woman from his dreams, from his waking nightmare. She moved with an elegant, almost regal bearing, her posture impeccable. She wasn't wearing an elaborate gown now, but a sophisticated, dark-colored jumpsuit, fitted and practical, yet exuding an aura of authority. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe bun, revealing sharp, intelligent features, framed by glasses that rested lightly on the bridge of her nose. Her eyes, a striking shade of gray, held a chilling calm. She carried a sleek, minimalist tablet, its screen glowing softly. She approached the table where he lay, her footsteps silent. There was no triumph in her expression, no malice. Just an unsettling, detached professionalism. "Michael," she said, her voice smooth and even, devoid of any discernible emotion. "Welcome. I trust your journey was enlightening." He stared at her, his throat dry, 1,000 questions clawing at his mind. Who are you? What have you done?" A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips, a flicker that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Reed, and what I have done, Michael, is correct a catastrophic error in human design. I have given us a chance at true progress, true stability." "You stole the sun," he rasped, the words tasting like ash. "You plunged the world into darkness." She tilted her head slightly, as if considering a complex equation. "Darkness is merely the absence of light, Michael. What I have done is remove an uncontrolled, chaotic variable. Humanity, for millennia, has been at the mercy of a celestial tyrant, a fluctuating energy source that dictated our very existence, our moods, our crops, our wars. It was time for a change." He tried to push himself up, straining against the restraints. "You can't just decide that. You've ruined everything. People are dying, panicking. The ecosystem, the planet, it'll collapse." Dr. Reed merely watched him, her gaze unwavering. "A temporary adjustment period, I assure you. The weak will perish, yes. A necessary culling. But the resilient, the adaptable, they will thrive in the new order. An order I am meticulously crafting." She gestured to the surrounding room. "You are in what I like to call the incubator. It is a facility designed to oversee the transition, to nurture the seeds of the new world." "New world?" Michael's voice was laced with disbelief and horror. "You mean a world under your absolute control? A world where you play God?" "God is an outdated concept, Michael," she replied, her voice still perfectly calm. "I am simply a visionary with the means to enact necessary change. And you, Michael, are crucial to the next phase of that change." His blood ran cold. "My role? What did you mean, my terrifying role?" She walked to a large opaque screen on the far wall. With a swipe of her hand on the tablet, it illuminated, revealing a complex array of schematics and data visualizations. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, yet disturbingly familiar in their underlying principles. Energy projections, atmospheric models, orbital mechanics, but twisted, inverted. Your expertise, Michael, in astrophysics, in solar energy, and planetary climate modeling, it is unparalleled. Before you dismissed my theories as radical and unethical, a perspective you will soon come to understand as short-sighted, you were on the cusp of breakthroughs that even I admired." She paused, her gaze returning to him. "You see, Michael, simply removing the sun was the first step. The disruption. But disruption without direction is chaos. We need a new sun. A controlled sun. A sun that provides precisely what is needed, when it is needed, without the unpredictable whims of a dying star." His mind reeled. A new sun? Was she completely insane? "That's impossible. You can't just create a star." "Not a star in the traditional sense, no," she conceded, a hint of something that might have been amusement in her eyes. "But a highly advanced, globally distributed energy matrix. A system that mimics the sun's beneficial effects, but under intelligent, centralized management. Think of it as a global utility providing warmth, light, and energy, but with precise ecological control. No more droughts, no more floods, no more devastating solar flares. Just perfect equilibrium, tailored to the needs of a truly optimized humanity." He stared at the schematics on the screen, a horrifying realization dawning on him. The designs, the calculations, they were based on principles he himself had explored, albeit in theoretical, speculative ways, always with the understanding that they were far too dangerous, too hubristic, to ever attempt. She had taken his nascent ideas, twisted them, and made them terrifyingly real. "And you expect me to help you build this monstrosity?" he demanded, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and outrage. "You won't just help, Michael," Dr. Reed corrected him, her voice softer now, almost persuasive. "You will lead. Your understanding of the underlying physics, your intuitive grasp of the delicate balance required, it is indispensable. Consider it your redemption. You can be the architect of a truly stable future, rather than merely observing the slow decay of the old one." She walked back to the table, her shadow falling over him. "The alternative, of course, is that you remain here, a relic of a bygone era, observing from the sidelines as the world adapts, as humanity evolves without you. I assure you, Michael, the new world will not wait for those who cling to the past. He tried to find a flaw in her logic, a way out, but her words, delivered with such calm conviction, resonated with a chilling, undeniable power. She wasn't a madwoman ranting. She was a brilliant, dangerous strategist who had already executed the unthinkable. The sun was gone, and she had a plan to replace it, a plan that required his very specific genius. "What about the people, my family, my friends?" he asked, a desperate plea in his voice. Are they part of your culling?" Dr. Reed's expression remained unreadable. "Those who adapt will find their place in the new order. Those who resist or who are simply too fragile for the transition will be reabsorbed by the natural cycle. It is the way of all evolution, Michael. Progress demands sacrifice." She turned, her gaze sweeping over the sterile room, then back to him. "You have a choice, Michael. Participate in the creation of a truly harmonious existence, or become another forgotten casualty of a world that refused to change. The technology is already largely in place. The energy conduits are being laid. The atmospheric processors are active. We merely need your final touch, your genius, to optimize the system, to ensure the new dawn is as perfect as it can be." He looked at the schematics again, at the terrifying beauty of her ambition. The scale of it was beyond anything he had ever imagined. She hadn't just stolen the sun. She was replacing God. And she wanted him, Michael, to be her unwilling prophet, the engineer of her new controlled universe. His terrifying role was not to escape, but to build the very cage that would encompass all of humanity. He was trapped, not just by restraints, but by the sheer, overwhelming reality of what she had already accomplished, and what she demanded he now complete. The sun was gone, and the new dawn, under Dr. Evelyn Reed's control, promised to be a far more chilling prospect. The air in the sterile chamber hummed with a low, resonant thrum, a sound Michael now associated with the impossible. Evelyn stood before him, her face illuminated by the cold glow of a holographic display that flickered with complex astronomical data and equations that made his blood run cold. He was still bound, but the physical restraints felt secondary to the mental shackles Evelyn had placed upon him, the sheer, undeniable proof of her terrifying power. The sun was gone. Not a metaphor, not a trick of the eye, but an absolute, horrifying truth. "Unbelievable," Michael whispered, his voice hoarse, a desperate plea for reality to reassert itself. You actually did it." Evelyn's gaze was steady, devoid of triumph, only a deep, unsettling conviction. "I merely provided the necessary correction, Michael. Humanity was on a collision course with extinction, oblivious to the true nature of the threat." "Threat?" He scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. "You plunged the entire planet into eternal night. Billions will die. Crops, ecosystems, the very fabric of life. It will all collapse. A necessary culling," she stated, as calmly as if discussing a faulty experiment. "A painful but vital reset. The initial phase is complete. The Earth is now shielded from the catalyst." "Catalyst for what?" Michael demanded, trying to find a purchase, any logical flaw in her madness. Evelyn walked slowly towards a larger holographic projection that materialized between them. It showed a vibrant, three-dimensional representation of the solar system. Then, with a gesture, she zoomed in past Earth, past Mars, to the outer reaches of the Kuiper Belt and beyond. "For decades, my research into exotic matter and dark energy led me down a path few dared to tread," she began, her voice gaining a lecture-like cadence. "I discovered anomalies, gravitational signatures that defied known physics. Most dismissed them as instrument errors, cosmic noise. But I persevered. I built Project Erebus, a network of deep space observatories, hidden and self-sustaining, far beyond the reach of conventional detection." The holographic display shifted, showing intricate diagrams of what appeared to be a vast, intricate energy lattice, spanning unimaginable distances. Michael, despite his terror, felt a flicker of professional curiosity. The sheer scale was mind-boggling. "And what Erebus revealed," Evelyn continued, her eyes fixed on the projection, "was terrifying. Not an asteroid, not a rogue planet, but something else. A parasitic entity, a cosmic organism of immense scale, drifting through the intergalactic void, dormant yet constantly expanding, absorbing, converting." Michael stared, his mind racing through every known astrophysical phenomenon. A Dyson sphere? A Kugelblitz? Evelyn shook her head. "No. far more insidious. It doesn't consume matter for energy. It consumes information. It feeds on the energetic signatures of consciousness, on the complex interactions of sentient life. And it was heading for our galaxy. That's absurd, Michael managed, though a cold dread was beginning to coalesce in his stomach. There's no scientific basis for such a thing. Ah, but there is, Evelyn countered, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. The universe is far older, far stranger than your textbooks allow. Erebus collected data, patterns, statistical probabilities. It showed that this entity, which I dubbed the Leviathan, was drawn to high-density clusters of active, evolving civilizations. And more specifically, its activation, its feeding cycle, was directly correlated with the presence of solar radiation. She turned to him, her eyes burning with an almost messianic zeal. The sun, Michael, was not just life-giver, but also a beacon, a signal flare. Every photon it emitted, every solar flare, every burst of energy, amplified our presence, making us a delectable target for the Leviathan. It was like living under an invisible, cosmic microscope, constantly broadcasting our existence to a predator. Michael's brain struggled to process this. A cosmic predator that fed on consciousness drawn by sunlight? It sounded like something out of a pulp sci-fi novel. Yet the impossible reality of the perpetual night outside lent a terrifying credence to her words. So your solution, he said, the words heavy with disgust, was to turn off the light, to effectively blind the predator by plunging Earth into darkness. Precisely, Evelyn affirmed, stepping closer. Project Nocturne. It involved a precise, multi-stage manipulation of Earth's orbital mechanics and a sophisticated atmospheric dispersal system designed to create a permanent, global obscuration layer. The immediate effect was the cessation of direct sunlight. The long-term effect is to render Earth invisible, silent, to the Leviathan's unique sensory apparatus. She gestured to the holographic solar system again. We're not just in darkness, Michael. We are cloaked. Our electromagnetic signature is dampened, our thermal output minimized, our very presence effectively erased from the cosmic tapestry that the Leviathan perceives. It will pass us by, seeking brighter, more active prey. Michael felt a wave of nausea. And the billions of people who will die from the cold, the starvation, the inevitable chaos? Are they just acceptable losses in your grand design? They are the price of survival, Evelyn said, her voice hardening. The alternative was total annihilation, not just of humanity but of every living thing on this planet, reduced to raw data for a cosmic parasite. Those who survive will be the strongest, the most adaptable. They will build a new world, a dark world, free from the sun's deceptive glow, free from the cosmic beacon that drew predators to our door. You can't just decide who lives and who dies, Michael roared, straining against his bonds, a surge of adrenaline momentarily overriding his fear. I didn't decide, Michael. Reality decided. I merely implemented the solution, she retorted, her voice sharp, cutting through his anger. And now, you will help me complete it. The word complete hung in the air, chilling him to the bone. Complete what? Project Nocturne is stable but not fully optimized, Evelyn explained, her gaze intense. The atmospheric dispersal is self-sustaining for now, but the delicate balance of Earth's new, sunless orbit is precarious. Without the sun's gravitational pull, even though we're still tethered by the residual fields, there are subtle drifts, minute perturbations that could, over millennia, lead to catastrophic instability. A slow spiral into deep space, or worse, a collision with another celestial body. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. My calculations predict a critical window for intervention. I've designed a permanent gravimetric stabilizer, a series of suborbital arrays that will lock Earth into a perfectly balanced, shielded orbit. But the precise calibration, the intricate multi-point synchronization, requires an understanding of celestial mechanics and exotic field theory that only you possess, Michael. Your work on quantum gravitational lensing, it's unparalleled. Michael stared at her, utterly aghast. She wanted him to help her perfect the eternal night, to solidify humanity's tomb. I won't do it, he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. I will never be complicit in this madness. Evelyn sighed, a sound of weary patience. You have no choice, Michael. The world outside is already descending into chaos. Governments have collapsed. Communications are failing. The initial panic has given way to despair, then primal instinct. Food riots, resource wars. It's all happening, just as my simulations predicted. Humanity is proving its destructive nature even in the face of its own salvation. She walked over to a small terminal, typing a few commands. A screen flickered to life, showing grainy, chaotic news footage. Emergency broadcasts from around the globe, all flickering into static. Cities plunged into darkness, desperate faces illuminated by flickering fires, screams swallowed by the pervasive gloom. It was a nightmare playing out in real time. "This is the world you refused to save, Michael," Evelyn said, gesturing to the screen. "And if you don't help me stabilize our new existence, this dying ember of humanity will simply extinguish itself for nothing. Your refusal changes nothing about the current state, only jeopardizes the future. Do you want to be the astrophysicist who understood the universe better than anyone, yet watched his species perish because of stubborn idealism? Or do you want to be the one who ensured its survival, however brutal the cost?" He looked at the images, at the despair, at the utter destruction of everything he knew. His mind screamed against the monstrous logic, but the images on the screen, the cold, undeniable darkness outside, pressed down on him with suffocating weight. He was trapped in a nightmare of her making, and she held the key to its continuation, or its final agonizing end. The sun was gone, and the new dawn under Dr. Evelyn Reed's control promised to be a far more chilling prospect. He had to find a way to fight back, to destroy her plan from within, before the darkness became truly irreversible. The darkness was absolute, a suffocating blanket that pressed in from every side, even within the confines of his sterile metallic cell. Michael didn't allow himself the luxury of despair. Despair was a surrender, and he had promised himself he would never give Evelyn Reed that satisfaction. Every fiber of his being screamed for escape, for retribution, for the return of the true sun. He systematically analyzed his prison. The walls were seamless, a polished, reinforced alloy that offered no purchase. A single heavy door, flush with the wall, was his only external boundary. There were no windows, no vents, no visible weak points. The air, though recycled, felt thin, carrying the faint, sterile scent of ozone and something else. A metallic tang, like a massive electrical current humming just beneath the surface. He could hear it, a low thrum that vibrated through the floor, a constant reminder of the unseen machinery that powered Evelyn's twisted new world. His mind raced, sifting through every detail he'd observed, every fragment of conversation he'd overheard, every fleeting glimpse of the facility before his capture. Evelyn's operation was vast, subterranean, an entire city beneath the earth, dedicated to her singular, audacious vision. She hadn't just blocked the sun, she had replaced it. That was the horrifying truth. She was generating a light source, a colossal artificial star, projecting its energy through the atmosphere, meticulously calibrated to mimic the sun's rhythm, its warmth, its very essence. She wasn't just controlling the darkness, she was controlling the light. He paced the small cell, his steps echoing softly in the silence. 3 paces one way, 3 paces back. He felt the floor with his bare feet, searching for any inconsistency. Nothing. The door was the only way out. He pressed his ear against it, listening. Faint, muffled voices sometimes drifted from beyond, along with the rhythmic clang of heavy machinery somewhere deeper in the complex. Guards patrolled, he knew, their footsteps precise, their presence a constant threat. His gaze fell upon the small, recessed panel in the wall that provided his meager meals. It was automated, a tray sliding in and out with silent efficiency. A flimsy plastic spork and an even flimsier plastic knife were his only tools. Useless for cutting through reinforced alloy, but perhaps not entirely useless. He pocketed the knife, a small act of defiance. Hours blurred into an indistinguishable continuum. He had no way of telling time, no cycle of light and dark. Evelyn controlled that now. He forced himself to eat the bland, nutrient-rich paste, conserving his energy. He needed to be sharp, focused. Then a new sound, a faint, high-pitched whine that seemed to emanate from the very walls, growing steadily louder. It was distinct from the constant hum. It built to a crescendo, then slowly faded. It happened every few hours, almost like a pulse. He started to count the intervals, trying to find a pattern. It was irregular, but always followed by a brief, almost imperceptible dip in the background hum. A power surge? A system recalibration? Whatever it was an event. A change in the monotonous rhythm of his captivity. He decided to use it. The next time the whine began, he pressed his ear to the door, listening intently. As the sound peaked, he heard it. A faint click, almost instantaneously masked by the descending hum. It was the sound of the door's locking mechanism disengaging, or at least shifting. A momentary vulnerability. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was all he had. The next time the whine started, Michael positioned himself. He waited, heart-pounding, for the peak. The moment the high-pitched sound reached its apex, and before the hum could fully reassert itself, he threw his entire body weight against the door. Nothing. It held firm. He tried again and again, timing it with the subsequent cycles of the whine. Each time the door remained unyielding. Frustration gnawed at him, but he refused to yield. There had to be something more. He replayed the moment in his mind. The click. The dip in the hum. What if it wasn't a physical weakness but an electronic one? A momentary power fluctuation that affected the locking mechanism's integrity, however briefly? He looked at the plastic knife in his hand. It was brittle, useless against metal. But what if he didn't need to cut? What if he needed to wedge? The next cycle began. Michael waited, his gaze fixed on the minuscule gap between the door and the frame. As the whine intensified, he jammed the flimsy plastic knife into the crack with all his might, then twisted. The plastic groaned, a tiny protesting sound. The high-pitched whine reached its peak. He felt a faint tremor in the door, a microjolt. He pushed again, harder, twisting the knife. Snapped. But not before he heard it again, that faint, almost imperceptible click, followed by another distinct sound. A soft metallic sigh, as if the mighty door had exhaled. And for a fraction of a second the heavy door shifted, a millimeter, maybe two. Not enough to open, but enough to confirm his theory. The power fluctuation was affecting the lock, creating a fleeting moment of weakness. He just hadn't found the right leverage. He had to get out of the cell to truly fight back. His objective was clear. Find the central control for Evelyn's artificial sun, and destroy it. He needed to plunge the world back into honest darkness, to give humanity a chance to reclaim its true light. He spent what felt like another day observing the guards, their shifts, their pathways. He realized they never entered his cell directly unless summoned. Everything was automated. He needed a distraction, something to exploit that tiny window of vulnerability. Then he noticed a small, almost invisible camera lens embedded in the upper corner of his cell. Evelyn was always watching. He needed to appear compliant, broken, anything but a threat. He stopped pacing. He sat against the wall, head bowed, feigning defeat. He even ate his meals without complaint, a picture of a prisoner resigned to his fate. He waited for the next guard shift change. He heard the faint footsteps, the murmur of voices. Then the familiar whine began. He knew this was his moment. As the whine reached its crescendo, he lunged for the door, not to force it open, but to activate the emergency call button recessed near the door frame. He'd seen it on his initial assessment but dismissed it. Now it was his weapon. He hit it repeatedly, a frantic series of beeps echoing through the corridor beyond. The door, still locked, remained shut, but the beeps were a clear breach of protocol. A guard would have to investigate. Moments later he heard heavy footsteps approaching. A gruff voice spoke through a speaker near the door. Prisoner 74, status report. Cease unauthorized communication attempt. Michael didn't answer. He simply continued to hit the button, feigning a panic breakdown. Open the door, the guard ordered. Let me see what he's doing. There it was. He heard the click of external controls, overriding the internal lock. The heavy door hissed open a crack, revealing a sliver of the brightly lit corridor and the heavily armed guard. His face obscured by a helmet, a weapon raised. What's your problem, 74? The guard demanded, stepping cautiously into the cell, his eyes scanning for any threat. Michael, still feigning distress, didn't look at him, but his eyes, sharp and calculating, were fixed on the gap between the guard's body and the door frame. The guard had to step fully inside for the door to close again. This was it. As the guard took another step, assessing the distraught prisoner, Michael moved. He didn't attack. He didn't fight. Instead, with a burst of adrenaline, he ducked low, sliding between the guard's legs and out of the cell. The guard bellowed in surprise, stumbling forward. The door, designed to automatically close after a set interval, began to hiss shut. Michael sprinted down the corridor, the guard's shouts and the clang of his heavy boots echoing behind him. He was free. For now. The corridor was stark, gleaming white, lit by harsh overhead lights that cast no shadows. He could hear the guard's frantic calls for backup, the blare of an alarm beginning to ripple through the facility. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he had to go down, deeper into the heart of Evelyn's operation. That constant hum, that metallic tang, it felt strongest in the lower levels. That's where the core of her artificial sun must be. He found a stairwell, a narrow utilitarian shaft of metal and concrete. He plunged down, taking 2 steps at a time, his lungs burning, the alarm growing louder, more insistent. He could hear the distant thud of more footsteps, converging on his location. They knew he was loose. He emerged onto a level that was different. Less sterile, more industrial. Giant conduits snaked across the ceiling. Thick cables hummed with power. The air here was heavy with the smell of ozone, and a low, resonant thrum vibrated through his bones. This was it. This was where the power was. He saw a large, reinforced door, marked with a stylized sunburst symbol, and the words primary core access. This had to be it. 2 guards stood outside, their rifles pointed directly at him as he emerged from the stairwell. They had anticipated his move. Evelyn was always 1 step ahead. "Hands in the air, 74!" one of them shouted. Michael knew he couldn't fight them. Not directly, but he also knew he couldn't stop now. He had come too far. He had to reach that core. The darkness outside, the world waiting for its true sunrise, depended on him. He looked past the guards at the door. He could feel the immense power radiating from behind it, a controlled fury contained within those walls. Evelyn's son. He knew what he had to do. He just had to find a way past these 2. Then from behind him he heard a new voice, a familiar voice sharp with urgency. "Michael! Down!" He instinctively dropped to the floor as a flash of light, followed by the crackle of a stun gun, erupted from the stairwell he had just exited. 1 guard crumpled. The other spun, disoriented. From the shadows of the stairwell, a figure emerged. Jessica. She held a modified stun gun, her face grim but resolute. And behind her, David, armed with a heavy wrench, his eyes blazing with determination. They had found him. They had come for him. And together they had a chance. The darkness outside wouldn't last forever. Not if they had anything to say about it. The battle for the sun, for the very light of the world, was about to begin. The facility was an architectural monstrosity, a brutalist scar carved into the earth, hidden beneath layers of reinforced concrete and electromagnetic shielding. It hummed with a low, malevolent energy, a sound that vibrated not just in their ears but in their very bones. This was the heart of the world's perpetual night, the citadel of perpetual night, as Michael had morbidly dubbed it in his mind. Jessica, ever the pragmatist, pointed to a faint shimmer in the oppressive gloom. "That's it. The main power conduit. If we can reroute its energy, we might destabilize the whole system." David, his face grim, checked his gear. Emily, surprisingly calm, mapped out their approach on a scavenged tablet, the faint glow illuminating her determined features. They moved as one, a unit forged in the crucible of despair and united by a singular, desperate hope. The air grew colder, thick with ozone and the metallic tang of advanced machinery. Corridors stretched endlessly, lined with blinking lights and conduits thicker than tree trunks. They navigated automated defenses, not with brute force, but with Jessica's ingenious hacks and Emily's uncanny ability to anticipate the system's logic. Finally, they reached the core chamber. It was immense, a cavernous space dominated by a colossal, pulsating sphere of interwoven energy fields. Tendrils of dark light snaked from it, disappearing into the ceiling, presumably extending outwards to blanket the world. Standing before it, a solitary figure, his back to them, was silhouetted by the eerie glow. Dr. Eris Thorne. Michael's voice was a low growl, echoing in the vast chamber. The figure turned slowly. He was a man of medium height, with a shock of prematurely white hair and eyes that held the fanatic glint of absolute conviction. "So the persistent few have arrived," Thorne said, his voice surprisingly calm, almost weary. "I expected you sooner, Michael. Your tenacity is admirable." "Tenacity born of desperation, Thorne," Michael countered. "You've plunged the world into darkness. Billions suffer. Why?" Thorne chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Suffer? Or are they finally learning to adapt? To appreciate the quiet? The calm? For too long, humanity has been blinded by its own hubris, by the relentless glare of a sun it believes it controls. I merely provided a necessary recalibration. He gestured expansively at the pulsating sphere. This is the umbral engine. My life's work. It doesn't block the sun, Michael. It harvests its energy, refracts it, and redistributes it into a perpetual global twilight. A sustainable, controlled environment. No more scorching heat. No more unpredictable storms. No more the tyranny of day. You call this sustainable? David roared, taking a step forward. People are freezing, starving. Their minds are breaking in the endless night. Minor adjustments, Thorne dismissed with a wave of his hand. Temporary discomfort for an eternal, perfect balance. Imagine a world where resources are meticulously managed, where growth is controlled, where humanity finally sheds its wasteful ways. You're playing God, Thorne, Jessica said, her voice laced with disgust. And you're failing spectacularly. On the contrary, Thorne's eyes narrowed. I am succeeding. The world is changing, adapting. The weak may perish, but the strong will emerge, reshaped by the darkness, ready for the new dawn I dictate. Michael felt a surge of cold fury. There won't be a new dawn if you have anything to say about it. We're shutting this down. Thorne smiled, a chilling superior grin. You think it's that simple? The umbral engine is not merely a switch. It is a complex, self-sustaining ecosystem of energy. To simply shut it down would be catastrophic. The sudden release of accumulated solar energy, the abrupt reintroduction of unfiltered light, it would incinerate the atmosphere, cause global seismic events, tidal waves of unimaginable scale. Humanity would be wiped out, not by elegant twilight, but by a fiery, chaotic apocalypse. A cold dread gripped them. Thorne wasn't just mad. He was brilliant, and he had trapped them in an impossible dilemma. Shut it down and destroy the world. Leave it on, and humanity slowly faded into oblivion. There has to be another way, Emily whispered, her usual composure cracking. There is, Thorne declared. But only I know it. A phased recalibration, a gradual reintroduction of light, managed over decades. And I am the only one capable of overseeing it. You want to hold the world hostage, Michael stated, the realization dawning. I want to save it, Michael, Thorne corrected, his voice tinged with self-righteousness. From itself, from its own destructive tendencies. And I require absolute authority to do so. Jessica's eyes scanned the complex machinery, her fingers twitching. He's lying, Michael. Or at least exaggerating. There must be a failsafe, a controlled shutdown protocol. Such protocols exist, of course, Thorne admitted, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. But they are locked behind layers of my own encryption, designed to prevent foolish interference. And I assure you, I will not be giving you the key. As he spoke, hidden panels in the chamber walls slid open, revealing automated sentries, sleek, silent drones armed with energy weapons. They hummed to life, their optical sensors locking onto Michael and his team. A final choice, Michael, Thorne announced, his voice regaining its calm authority. Join me. Lend your considerable influence to my vision. Or perish, and allow me to continue my work unimpeded. We're not joining you, Michael said, meeting Thorne's gaze without flinching. And we're not perishing. Not while there's a chance to bring back the sun. With Michael's words, the battle began. David charged, drawing the drone's fire, creating a diversion. Emily, with astonishing agility, ducked behind a console, her fingers flying across its interface, trying to bypass Thorne's security. Jessica, meanwhile, focused on the main umbral engine, her mind already dissecting its complex energy signatures. Michael confronted Thorne directly. The scientist, surprisingly agile for his age, dodged Michael's initial lunge, activating a personal force field that shimmered around him. Thorne wasn't just a theorist, he was prepared. The chamber became a maelstrom of flashing energy, the clang of metal, and the desperate shouts of Michael's team. David skillfully disabled 2 drones, but a third pinned him behind a console, its energy blast chipping away at his cover. Emily cried out as her console sparked, a feedback surge throwing her back. Jessica, deep in her hacking, was oblivious to the immediate dangers, her face bathed in the console's glow, her brow furrowed in intense concentration. Michael pressed his attack on Thorne, trying to break through the force field, knowing that Thorne was the key to unlocking the true shutdown sequence. Tell me the override, Michael demanded, slamming his fist against the shimmering barrier. Never! Thorn snarled, retaliating with a directed energy pulse from his hand, a smaller version of the drone's weapons. Michael barely dodged it, feeling the heat sear past his ear. Suddenly, a voice cut through the chaos. "I'm in. I found a back door." It was Jessica, her voice strained but triumphant. "But it's unstable. I need to reroute the feedback loop without triggering the atmospheric meltdown." "How long?" Michael yelled back, parrying another energy blast from Thorn. "Minutes. Maybe less. The system is fighting back." Thorn's eyes widened in alarm. "Impossible. My encryption is flawless." He lunged towards Jessica, abandoning his fight with Michael. Michael, seeing his chance, tackled Thorn, bringing them both crashing to the ground. The force field flickered and died. Michael pinned Thorn, demanding, "What's the sequence, Thorn? How do we stop it safely?" Thorn struggled, his face contorted in a mix of fury and fear. "You fools! You'll doom us all. It's too late." Just then, Emily, recovering from the feedback, saw a critical panel on the main Umbral engine, exposed by Jessica's breach. It glowed with an emergency override symbol. "Michael, the manual override." Jessica created a window. Michael looked from the struggling Thorn to the panel. There was no time. He had to trust Jessica and Emily. He delivered a swift, incapacitating blow to Thorn, then scrambled towards the panel. Jessica's voice strained. "Now, Michael. Hit the red sequence. It's cycling. You have one shot." Michael saw the sequence of blinking lights, a dizzying array of reds, blues, and greens. He remembered Emily's earlier analysis of Thorn's system logic, Jessica's frantic instructions. He took a breath, his hand hovering over the buttons. This was it. The fate of the world rested on this single desperate act. He slammed his palm down, hitting the red sequence just as the lights flashed. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then a low, grinding groan echoed through the chamber, growing in intensity. The pulsating sphere of the Umbral engine began to flicker, its dark tendrils shrinking back. Alarms blared, a cacophony of sound. "It's working!" Jessica screamed, her voice hoarse with relief and exhaustion. "The energy is being diffused. Slowly. It's a controlled release." The room began to shake violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. David, freed from the drone, rushed to Emily's side, shielding her. Michael watched in awe as the Umbral engine, the source of their endless night, began to visibly contract, its immense power draining away. Then a faint, almost imperceptible shift. A subtle lightening in the oppressive gloom of the chamber. It wasn't direct light, but a lessening of the darkness, a softening of the edges. They rushed out of the core chamber, the facility groaning around them, its automated defenses sputtering and failing. They found their way to an emergency exit, a heavy blast door that opened into the desolate, dark landscape they had known for so long. But something was different. High above, through the thick, unbroken cloud cover, a faint ethereal glow began to manifest. It was a pale, almost hesitant blush of orange and pink, pushing against the oppressive gray. It was barely visible, a ghost of a promise, but it was there. "The sun!" Emily breathed, tears streaming down her face. "It's coming back," David whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Michael felt a profound, overwhelming sense of relief wash over him, so powerful it almost buckled his knees. He looked at Jessica, her face streaked with grime but alight with a fierce joy. They had done it. They had actually done it. The glow intensified, slowly, majestically. The clouds, once an impenetrable shroud, began to thin, revealing glimpses of a vast, deep blue sky. And then a brilliant, blinding sliver of golden light erupted on the horizon, piercing through the lingering darkness, painting the world in hues of fire and hope. It was a sunrise unlike any they had ever seen, more beautiful, more profound, more miraculous than anything they could have imagined. The world around them, still scarred by the long night, seemed to awaken. Birds, silent for so long, tentatively began to chirp. A gentle breeze, carrying the scent of damp earth and renewed life, rustled through the desolate landscape. The sun, their sun, was rising. It climbed higher, banishing the shadows, warming their chilled skin, filling their eyes with a light so vibrant it brought tears. The long night was over. The world was bathed in golden light once more. They stood there, Michael, Jessica, David, and Emily, watching the miracle unfold, their faces upturned, bathed in the glorious light. They were survivors, heroes, but more than that, they were witnesses to the rebirth of their world. The darkness had been a terrible teacher, forcing humanity to confront its own fragility, its dependence on the most fundamental of forces. But it had also shown them their resilience, their capacity for hope, their ability to fight for what truly mattered. As the sun reached its zenith, casting long, triumphant shadows, Michael knew the battle wasn't truly over. The world had to heal, to rebuild, to remember the lessons of the long night. But now they would do it under the warmth of a familiar sky, guided by the unwavering light of hope. The sun had risen again, and with it, a new chapter for humanity had begun. Forever grateful for the light they almost lost, they had faced the darkness, and together, they had brought back the dawn.